Greetings, brothers. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We just check everything is set. Yeah, I think we're set. Here we go. Now we're set. Fucking hell, it's October already, isn't it? It's crazy how quickly this year has gone. But good evening, Highland Phoenix, Life RPG, Mike, Jeffrey. Let's see whose list's up for this week. Not sure if you were on the list for this week, Jeffrey. Let's find out. Today's lists are... Oh, it is indeed you, Jeffrey. Okay. Zugdug Gaming, CJ Williams, Douglas, Jeffrey Smith, and Michael. Next week, we have Kale, Drysu, Eric, KWSX, no idea, Life RPG, and Matthew. So, we got some people 2 weeks away as well. So, lists are coming in thick and fast. We might be getting a balanced slate in the next couple of weeks. Not sure that there's anything that we should really be hoping for. I don't know of any rules that are going to really change the dynamics of Blood Angels or anything like that. So, yeah, that's probably where we stand. Good evening, Campbell. Hello. Alright, so let's get straight into it tonight, and we're going to start with the list by Zugdug. I think he sent me 2 lists. Yeah, he sent 2. So, I guess let's read over what he has to say. And if you have any questions, as always, just put them into the chat. And if there's anything else you want to talk about Blood Angels related, obviously I can help it there. Given Blood Angels are 49% win rate, not sure much will change for us. 49% is not good though, Highland Phoenix, right? Like, what's the win rate on Tyranids at the moment? Because even after Tyranids got like all the changes last chapter approved, I still think they're really, really strong. Alright, so his first list was for fun. I'd already painted some stuff that I normally use for tournament play, and he's just returned from 2 years off. This list was used the largest GT in Arizona with 68 players, and combined with a paint scoring, general scoring, end up getting the best Imperial at the event. I'll include pics of the army. Oh, I don't know where your pics are, sorry, because I guess this was submitted in a YouTube comment. The secondary is almost every time. Relentless Assault, Death from Above, and Psychic Interrogation. Death from Above surprises me as actually a secondary, because I don't like it. The idea of the list was to drop in the 3 Furioso Dreads on turn 1 to get the -2 from the frag cannons and heavy flamers. Decided to put drop pods on objectives to force opponents to have to deal with them, so get as many Death from Above points and Relentless Assault points on turn 1. Okay, interesting. The Death Company Dreadnought just runs down the middle. I don't know how many jump units you can have if you've got 4 dreadnoughts. The Psychers used to buff whatever dread is going to be the biggest thing that they have, with an extra interrogation every turn. Intercessor stayed back in rapid fire at 30 inches, not moving. Infiltrator served as character protection for librarians. This sounds like a very different to normal Blood Angels list. Librarians keep up with them and keep deep strikes away from the majority of the army. My Sanguinary Guard will drop in when they had a juicy target. Using Descent of the Angels for the reroll charges and +1 to hit. Descent of the Angels doesn't give reroll charges, right? Descent of the Angel lets you ignore charge modifiers. Doesn't give you. Where is it? Why is it not coming up? Did he spell it wrong? Descent D. Just fine, DESC. Am I spelling it wrong? Was it even called Descent of Angels anymore? Maybe this is not. It's not showing stratagems tonight. 9th edition, stratagems. Oh, is it match case or something? No? Yeah, it is Descent of Angels. Each armor charge you can ignore, and you can add +1. Yeah, you don't get to re-roll your charge, though. Okay. He killed 2 characters on the same turn for 10 points, and he lost to Tau. The Silent King beat Tau, Admech, Gennari, and Custodes. Good evening, folks. Quite a lot of people tuning in. 49% is not good. I mean, 49% is not good relatively to the top armies, I guess, Mark. If everybody was on 49 or 50%, yeah, that would be great, but they're not, right? I don't have a quick way. There used to be a website, 40k stats, right? Does that still exist? Yeah, I mean, like Harley's have 66% win rate. World Eaters have 60, Tyranids have 50. That's what I was saying, like, Tyranids are crazy strong even after the points costs last time round. So if this is just results from the last weeks in GTs, then yeah, like 49% is it's pretty poor. Some of these codexes are really old. Drakari's codex isn't, Drakari's codex is probably like 18 months old at this point, and they're still on 62%. Ugh. Okay. All right, so this is an unorthodox list. 5 CP, 16, 10 points. He's got 3 Dreadnought drop pods. He's got Astroth, who is the Warlord with Soul Warden. He's got Mephiston. So, and I mean, you can't run Legends Mephiston anymore. He needs to be the Primaris one, and he's 140 points. Infiltrators and 2 Incursors. The grenade launchers, to me, are not worth it at all. Shooting a crack grenade or frag grenade like 30 inches makes me think whoop-de-doo. I'd much rather put like a power sword on the sergeant, right? He's got 3 Furioso Dreadnoughts, heavy flamers in the cannon. He's got Death Company Dreadnought with the Melta Bombs and Blood Talons. He's got 2 very small squads of Sangre Guard, and I don't like the Sangre Guard being in such small squads. I think there's a potential they just bounce off enemy units. And then he has a Librarian and a Librarian Dreadnought. I guess he said that he was going to try and do Psychic Interrogation. I mean, I guess that part seems viable. And then he's got another squad of Infiltrators. Wow. And this list doesn't feel to me like it has very much damage. 3 Dreadnoughts. I mean, against... we just said a second ago, like, against Tyranids, against Drakari, who else was up there in the top? Harlequins. These guys are going to delete it. A troop squad will delete a Dreadnought easy enough. Tyranids will delete... The Hive Tyrant can kill the Dreadnought, like, absolutely no problem. I don't like this list at all. I mean, I guess maybe you can score some death from above points. You can score some relentless assault points. You can score your interrogation. So, I mean, I guess the list is built around scoring secondaries. Is this list going to be... is it going to do enough damage to hang in there and survive out the rest of the game? I guess that's questionable. I guess you can try and sit the infiltrators in cover on the objective and just screen and maybe try and hold 2 secondaries. So, to me, this feels like a list that's designed around trying to get some scoring. I don't think it's going to be that competitive. I don't think Furioso Dreadnoughts are that good at all. What's the frag cannon? It's like heavy D3, 2D3, strength 7 -1, right? I mean, I've got a couple of Furioso Dreadnoughts. I never consider using them. I guess I've felt like they're not strong enough. Frag cannon. So it's averaging 4 shots. You're hitting on 3s, so probably like 3 hits. So 3 strength, 7, 2 damage hits per Dreadnought. It's only 18 inches as well, but I guess the drop pod means that you'd probably be able to drop it in range. Okay, so that's Zugdug's list. He took it to a GT. He lost against, what did he say? He lost to Tau and the Silent King. Yeah, I don't know if you have enough damage to honestly kill the Silent King. And yeah, I can fully imagine this getting killed by Tau as well. You just don't have much damage output, right? Crack grenades should be AP2. Crack grenades are just meh. at the best of times. I would never pay the 5 points to get this to shoot them longer range. It looks like a just for fun list. I mean, it could be just for fun, but he did take it to GT. I mean, I guess just for fun at a GT. The Furioso also doesn't have core, but I guess that doesn't really matter because you don't have any rerolls on the list. Lawrence from Tabletop Tactics run 3 I think you mean Venerable Dreads? I mean, I prefer Venerable Dreads a lot to Furioso Dreads, I think. They're more survivable, they got better reliability. And then you're right, the frag cannon can't even be shot in combat. I guess your heavy flamer can be shot in combat, but heavy flamers are into armor of contempt enemies. They're pretty weak these days. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that they've like I've been looking at some tournament results over the last like couple of weeks, and it does seem that like Harleys, Tyranids, Drukhari to a certain extent, I was going to say Eldari, and then I guess I haven't seen too many of the new Chaos lists, but like I also watched an Auspex Tactics video about the tier lists of armies, and there's still a lot of armies that are way above 50% win rate. I don't know why I don't know why they're allowed. I don't know why they decide to leave them that high above 50% when other armies like ours and other marine armies can't even get 50%. Okay, so that was his first list. And then he said he's making a list that he's actually planning on using. He's making a tweak here or there for the needed meta, but this is what I've landed on so far. One of the Death Company squads were Forlorn Fury. I mean, I think that you need to use Forlorn Fury if you're a Blood Angels player and you go first. I think it's really important. One Sangre Guard will start on the board as a counter charge. I think that's good as well. I have all the buffs on the characters to throw on the squad in turn 1 or 2 while waiting for the Deep Strike reinforcements. I wouldn't Deep Strike too many things. 8-inch charges, even with a reroll, isn't that reliable. It's like 66%. The Thunderstrike is hitting on 2s and Eliminators support heavy shooting early on. Most of the heavy listing is a Sangre Guard, and this sounds more like a Blood Angels list. Douglas says as a heads up, not sure how well it's known, but charging the Silent King's menhirs and not him means he can't give you fight last, so you can fight before him. Is that... I didn't know that, Douglas. Thank you for sharing that. Is that just semantic? Is it like, because you're not in engagement range with the Silent King, he can't make you fight last? Would it be first? What's the rule that makes him that does the fight last? At the start of the fight phase, if the enemy unit was within engagement range. Yeah, okay. Interesting. That's a really good tactic then, Douglas. I guess anyone that's fighting the Silent King should definitely use that. I mean, he'll consolidate him into engagement range, I would imagine, but would help you in a turn where you charge him, and that's a big deal. Cool. Appreciate you sharing that, Douglas. That's a handy tip to have. Maybe I need to just throw that together in a quick video one time. I'm going to save that. Good point made. Because the damage will overflow, right? So, because they're one unit, essentially. Okay. Appreciate you sharing that. Maybe everybody knew about that in chat and I'm the idiot, but I mean, I'm happy to take the hit and pretend to look like the idiot. Okay. So his second list has taken Astaroth with Manta and Canticle. He's got Dante as the Warlord with Heroic Bearing. He's got the Priest with the Teeth of Terra and Rites of War. Okay, these are all good picks. much better picks than what you had before, I guess. And Cursors 2 times Infiltrator squads. Death Company all chainswords. Death Company 4 hammers. Sangre Ancient with Wrath of Baal and Soul Warden. Cool. 3 6-man squads of Sangre Guard. A lot of swords. And 1 squad of axes. I'd probably go like 4-2, 4-2, 4-2 in leaning on swords in all the squads. I don't like having a squad with all just one weapon type if you've got to mix them. He's got the Thunderstrike. He's got 2 Last Fusel Eliminator squads. This is much more standard Blood Angels. I think this would do a lot better. Maybe it's not built as heavily around, like, a Psychic Interrogation secondary or a Death from Above secondary. But in terms of, like, just board control, killing units in combat, getting that 14 inches move, having the protection from Soul Warden, having the 2 Death Company to the Infernal Fury, having the troops, having the priest, having Asrath and Dante, there's a much more solid list. I haven't tried the Thunderstrike yet. I've been using the one that's 5 points cheaper. I forget the name of it. Is it the Hammer Strike? Yeah, so I've used the Hammer Strike once. It was 5 points cheaper, and I think it's pretty cool as well. So I think I'm probably going to end up preferring the Hammer Strike because I like flat 3 damage, and I also like 3 multi-metal shots, I guess. So I think I'm going to prefer this one. And the thing that scares me with the Thunderstrike, yes, it has Ballistic Skill 2, which is nice, and it's got longer range, which is nice, but D6 damage is scary. I really actually like the 36-inch missiles with -3 damage on the Hammer Strike missile launcher. I thought that was pretty cool. Brune Biscuit says, looked like a turn 1 Dreadnought Storm, Forlorn the Death Company Dread, Wings Librarian Dread, and Drop Pod all the Furioso. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if that's that good anymore. Like, realistically, a Dreadnought's only going to kill a couple of models in the shooting phase and maybe a couple of models in the fight phase. And they're not, Dreadnoughts may have been survivable at one point. I would say Toughness 7 with no invulnerable save is not a survivable model now. Atlas says he prefers the Hammer Strike. He'd take Ballistic Skill 3 with multi-meltas over Last Cannons any day. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I thought, and it is 5 points cheaper. And I obviously think with a 16-inch move, it's very easy to move within 12 and get that D6 plus 2 damage, which is very tasty late game, right? Yeah. So this list that you sent second time round, I much prefer. I might try and I was going to say I might try and start with 1 more CP, but I don't really think he needs it. I like he's got Wrath of Baal and Soul Warden. I like he's got Rites of War. I'm fine with Dante and Astaroth. Yeah. The main thing I think I would do is to go 4 swords, 2 axes in every squad. That wouldn't be the exact same number of models and the equipment that they've got, so when models start dying, you just lift off the ones that don't make sense into the matchup. But this seems like yes, this list isn't as designed to score secondaries, but I think it's just a much more solid, high-scoring Blood Angel sort of list. All right, CJ Williams is list number 2 for tonight. I like people taking infiltrators now. Stops the new demon threats. Yeah, I used to always run infiltrators. I'm not too familiar with the demon threats, Danny. You want to clue us up? Chaos Demons is not a book that I have bought. I don't have anyone that plays demons in my meta. I was thinking of taking a squad. I was thinking of taking the Whirlwind and a squad of servitors for the backfield now. The servitors are going to do nothing except screen out the backfield, I guess. Mike says Thunderstrike 100%. Not only is 2+ more reliable, but has blast misses for any 1 wound chaff. What is it? What are you saying? It has blast? What? Oh, the rocket pods. Heavy 2d3. I mean, I guess. maybe I ignore them because I have rocket pods. I've often used rocket pods on my dreadnoughts, and I never on my Redemptor dreadnoughts, and I never found them that useful. I mean, I guess air-to-air missiles would be okay. Demons can deep strike within leadership in inches, and they can lower your leadership too. And I guess infiltrators just override that and then they can never come in. Is that right? Alright, CJ Williams says, "Hi John, love the channel. I've got some critiques on my list. I'm going to Michigan GT in October for secondaries. I choose Relentless Assault and R&D for the third, being situation based on the army I'm against." Alright, so 1996, 1 CP. I don't like starting on 1 CP. I always think you should aim to start with 2, but let's see where we go. Right, we've got Dante, Heroic Bayring. He's the Warlord. We've got a Librarian with 2 CP bent on him. He has Unleash Rage, Blood Boil, Wings. He's the Chief Librarian. He has an Infernal Pistol, he has a Jump Back, he has Rites of War, and he has Visions of Death. My experience with Blood Boil is it's bad. Because you have to take 2 psychic tests to get a successful Blood Boil pass, right? You have to pass your psychic test, and then you have to pass against their toughness. You have to roll over their toughness on 2d6. It has to be more than the toughness. So, like, quite often if you're fighting something that's like toughness 6, you need a 7+ on 2 dice for Blood Boil, and then it's D3 mortals. My experience with Blood Boils is, I think it's great. It can be targeted, because you don't need to do it on the closest enemy. I think you'd be better just trying to use wings to make the target you want to kill be the closest and then smite them. Blood Boil, in my opinion, is really unreliable. I tried it in like 10 games. It always felt unreliable. Alright, then we get the Priest, who's a selfless healer. 155 points, he's running Armor Indomitus. I mean, it makes sense to give the Priest Armor Indomitus to try and keep him alive, because he's a selfless healer. My experience with the selfless healer is mixed. I occasionally try him, and then I just decide I don't like him and just like to run him like a priest with a jump pack, and not waste CP on him. Because I think if the enemy really want to kill your priest, they'll kill your priest, right? He's only got what 4 wounds, so Armor Indomitus gives him 5 wounds. But I mean, even still, he's just toughness 4. Most enemies can chew through 5 wounds on toughness 4 character in a single turn. I mean, if they're hitting you with like a power fist, it's only 2 or 3 saves, he's gone, right? We have Assault Intercessors, Incursors, and an Intercessor squad with auto bolt rifles. We've got Death Company with 3 hammers. We've got 7 Sanguinary Guard with 1 Infernal Pistol, mostly swords, or all swords. All axes. We got another squad that's all swords. Again, I prefer to mix the squads, because I never think that the squad might be in the right place on the battlefield. Good evening, Rezio. We've got a squad of scouts. Sergeant has a couple of lightning claws, interesting choice. The rest have bolt pistols and combat knives. We've got Vanguard veterans with storm shields and thunder hammers. We haven't really seen Vanguard veterans with storm shields and thunder hammers and like the relic blades ever since the Death Company got their points drops. And I just wonder here, would you just maybe be better just having another squad of Death Company if they're like 45 points cheaper? Probably. I mean, Vanguard veterans, what do they get? 1 less attack than a Death Company model. Because Death Company have 2 + 1 from Black Rage. They all have 3. So you get less attacks. You maybe get a slightly better save into tough, like high EP weaponry, but you give up your Feel No Pain. Vanguard veterans really fell off since we saw Armor of Contempt. We also saw an Assault Squad here, which is a 6-man one. So this is like an R&D Assault Squad. Couple of plasma pistols, lightning claws. We've got Landspeeder with multi-melta. We've got Eliminators with Las Fusils ×2, and then we've got the Landspeeder Storm with the Cerberus launcher and the Heavy Bolter. And the main reason to have that would be so that the scouts could go inside it, right? Yeah, infiltrators always shut down deep strike because they have to be you have to be over 12 inches away from them. Okay, so maybe we're gonna see more infiltrators in the near future. Yeah, I guess I just suck at playing the selfless healer, Reziel. Maybe I just suck at playing toughness 4 characters. I need my characters to be survivable. Um, Maybe that's just the way that I play. I maybe put my characters too out there and need them to be survivable. Selfless healer for me, Selfless healer for me is a really weird one because it feels like you want him to be quite near the front so that like multiple units can get his aura, but then I end up bunching too many units around him, and then eventually he'll just get picked, and yeah. So I'm unsure in Selfless Healer for 155 points. I seem to get on better when I just run the Rites of the Rites of War 120 point priest, or maybe even not just 100 point, maybe just 120 point priest. But anyway, another two eliminators, Storm and the Scouts, the Assault Squad, that gives you a good amount of units to do actions. I guess this Vanguard Veteran Squad could do actions as well. You get the 2 squads of Sangry Guard, the Death Company, the 3 troop choices. I might, if this was me, I might give up an Intercessor squad for the 2nd squad of Incursors. I don't think auto bolt rifle Intercessors are all that good, but I mean it's everybody's own opinion on that. I do like the Librarian that has Rites of War and Visage of Death. I just wonder if you can just do what you need to do with Rites of War, right? Like, I feel like the only time you're going to need Visage of Death is. I could be wrong here. You're playing against some sort of knight army where, like, models are counting as 5 and 10 in OBSEC and stuff like that. And or you're playing against, like, Necrons and potentially squats, I guess, where things are counting as double OBSEC. Most of the time, if you have like a jump librarian with Rites of War, who's going to be with a squad of like 7 Sangry Guard or 5 Death Company or 5 Vanguard Veterans, you're going to essentially end up with 6 OBSEC units on the objective. Plus, you're going to be jumping onto that objective with a Death Company and a priest, a librarian who's got like Unleash Rage and also Smite. So like, surely you're going to kill some of the models on that objective. So like, at what point does Rites of if you have Rites of War, because I've been running Rites of War, um, I've been running Rites of War on my captain on my survival chapter master. I've been running Rites of War and Soul Warden on him, right? And he pretty much always runs with like a 7-man or a 6-man squad of Sangry Guard. So my chapter master, who's making the Sangry Guard hit on 2s, reroll 1s, jump onto an objective with a big squad of Sangry Guard. He's obviously got an Infernal Pistol and Thunderhammer. There's a couple of Infernal Pistols of Sangry Guard. If I don't kill enough stuff to obsec that away from them with Rites of War, I feel like that's kind of on me. I feel like I don't know if I need Visage of Death. Um, some top level tournament players are running Visage of Death. We've seen it happen. We know that it's had value. But just in this list, starting on 1 CP, I think is really horrible. So like, I would, because the way I see it is, right, you go first. So you want to spend 1 CP to like Forlorn Fury, the Death Company. So you've got 0 CP. The start of the game, you get 1. You might need to reroll their charge. So then when it comes to the opponent's turn, you've got no CP for counter offensive or anything like that. So that's why I really want to start with 2 CP. I basically want, when it's the opponent's turn, I want to be able to counter offensive. Like, I think it's so important. And like, well, you saw the game against Orcs this week, guys, where like people were laughing at me that I spent 5 CP, was it? In turn 2? Orc turn 2, he called his wagon turn 2. I spent 5 CP. I did like I obviously counter offensived. I overwatched. I don't remember where I spent the other 2. Maybe I transhuman something. Um I saw the Giants one tonight. I didn't know they were playing in London next week, but that's great. That means I'll be able to catch the game live because I hate watching games at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. because I never get to the end of them. Um, I like Chris's suggestion of putting Rights and Visage across two different characters. I like that a lot more actually. If you could, maybe the way I would do this would be to. I was going to say he can't do it, I guess, unfortunately, because the chief apothecary is the selfless healer. If the apothecary in this point wasn't the selfless healer, then I would. Oh no, you could. You could give Visage of Death to the apothecary and lose Armor and Indomitus. I really think the apothecary should be staying out of. Like, the only reason to put Armor and Indomitus on the apothecary, and you guys laugh at me for like not liking toughness 4 characters, but correct me if I'm wrong here, the only reason to put Armor and Indomitus on the apothecary is because you made a bad play and the apothecary is now in the shit and he shouldn't be, right? Like, your apothecary should be surrounded by like a whole squad of guys. Like, no one should be able to attack him, no one should be able to shoot him. I mean, sure, if they've got some snipers, but like snipers aren't really a problem in this current edition. I've run into very few people who have sniped my characters. Um, I had a priest with rights and armor indomitus and a librarian with mastery and visage. It was so good. Well, yeah, so you have a slight variation on this. Yeah, yeah, okay. So I think a slight variation on these warlord traits, and I think starting on 2 CP would be really important. Um, the only other thing that I question is the Vanguard veterans. Are they the right choice now when you could get a squad of Death Company with like 5 infernal pistols, 5 power swords, and be about what 30 points cheaper? Um, that would actually let you put a fourth hammer into this other Forlorn Fury Death Company. And I've been playing with 2 Death Company, and I think 2 Death Company helps a lot for the Forlorn Fury threat. Because what I do now is I put one of my Death Company down right at the start of the game, right? Like front and center, right at the start of the deployment zone, right at the front, obscured. And that sort of says to the opponent, you now need to think about your deployment really carefully because I have one Death Company right in the front, which can go basically anywhere, and you don't know where I'm going to put that second Death Company, and you can sure as guess that I'm going to be putting it down last. And that's why I'm liking 2 Death Company. I think it makes your opponent's deployment much more hard. So he said he was going to do Nachman data, which I think is fine. He's also going to do Relentless Assault here, which was fine. You know, and if you did save 50 points here, you do, you do only have 5 elite choices. You could take a squad of servitors. You could take a squad of company veterans. Servitors can be a neat little squad that can get you Relentless Assault. And or can do Nachman data, and or can set up bombs on certain maps and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so I think maybe there's a little adjustment around these librarian and sanguinary priest in terms of like you want to start with a tiny bit more CP. Um, the quake bolts that you have here on your eliminators. Yeah, I mean that's the only other thing you could maybe change out is these quake bolts. I guess you've got the quake bolts for all your thunder hammers. So if you made this squad of death camp, if they were all power fist infernal pistols, you probably don't need the quake bolts for them. So then the only one you're arguing is you need quake bolts for this squad of thunderhammers. Well, you don't. You just give your librarian unleash rage, and you give Commander Dante full rerolls. You get the priest to put them in assault doctrine. Then you can save 1 CP on quake bolts here as well. So I think it's my opinion on this list is you need to save 1 CP, and then I guess like I don't know. Vanguard veterans at 36 points per model, and a Death Company with a hammer at 33 points per model, getting one more attack, to me feels like the Death Company is just a much better choice. The survivability difference between them is very minor unless you're hitting them with like -3 AP, and then maybe the Vanguard veterans edge it ever so slightly. But on like -1 and -2, I think the Death Company will actually be better because at -1 AP, both the Vanguard Veterans and Death Company are going to save on 3s, right? Because the Storm Shield doesn't benefit from Armor of Contempt. So on -1 AP, they're both going to be saving on 3s. The Death Company are also going to have that 6-up Feel No Pain and +1 attack, so they're better. At -2, the Death Company are also going to save on 4s. Still going to have +1 attack, still going to save on 6 with a Feel No Pain, so they're going to be better. So it's only when you hit -3 that statistically the Vanguard Veterans are a little bit better, and you're giving up 1 attack for that. I guess you can perform actions on them, but we don't see Vanguard Veterans at the moment in like competitive lists. We just see a lot of people leading heavily back into Death Company, right? Evening, Christian. Rizio said I made a good point about Armor and Dominus not being necessarily on the Priest. The Priest needs to be placed particularly well. It's 180 for 5 Death Company with Thunder Hammers, which I think is better than 5 Vanguard Veterans with Hammers. His squad wasn't quite all Hammers, though, right? It was like 4 Hammers and a Relic Blade. So, I'd probably... I think if you put the 4th Hammer on this first squad, though, then the second squad doesn't necessarily be Hammers. It could be Power Swords and Infernal Pistols. James played an RTT yesterday. The 5-man Infernal Pistol Power Sword did absolutely nothing in 3 games. Twice the output wasn't enough and got stuck in combat against demons. Oh, that sucks, James. I still think 5 Infernal Pistols is good. Did you have rerolls on the Infernal Pistols and stuff? Vanguard Veterans are suffering for not being inefficient. Yeah, I feel the same way at the moment. Okay, Douglas says, I've been a long follower but only recently started playing competitive. I had about 30-40 games a night and I'm attending my first GT in November. Cool. The basics of the list is built around scoring on Relentless Assault and Fury of the First. I think you mean Fury of the Lost, because Fury of the First is the Terminator strat that gives you +1 to hit. Flexing the last, but the Death Company Captain is there as a throwaway unit for Blade of Sanguinius. Okay. I've been generally reserving the larger squad of Death Company to guarantee scoring max on Relentless Assault while being good at dealing with 1 wound backfield objective holders. Rather than going 2x5 incursors, I've gone with 1 squad of infiltrators to help stop the backfield. Okay. And then I guess it counters against Relentless Assault. Makes sense. I know the list has 3 major weaknesses. Shooting. I've taken a double Graph Flux Leviathan that has short range but is really good at clearing Marines and decent V tanks and elites. It's got vulnerability to mortals. I've sort of accepted that as a weakness. Let's see if we can fix that, because that is a huge... If you can fix that, it helps loads. I'm relatively weak against Fight Last. Typically, Blood Angels are relatively weak against Fight Last. We don't have great ways of getting it. I'm not going for top table or anything in the 8-game tournament, but getting 3 or 4 wins would be great. There are some armies I'll play against that lightly just lose. Anything with mass mortals or fight last on death. There are plenty of armies I feel this list will perform well against. This list feels fairly noob friendly with a clear plan of throwing a unit or 2 of Death Company for Relentless Assault or Fury the First with... I think you did Fury the First again, I think you mean Fury the Lost. And the Priest being used as a bait for Angel Sacrifice. And a hub for Rites of War and other buffs. Okay. As a heads up, Stephen Box took a similar list to mine to the London GT with the Whirlwind in place of the Leviathan. Oh, really? How did Stephen get on at the GT? Did anyone know Stephen's final score? Alright, we got Dante as the Warlord. We got the Death Company Captain with Gift of Foresight, Infernal Pistol, and a Thunderhammer, and then we've got the Priest with Rites of War and Armor Indomitus. And again, we talked about this already. Armor Indomitus, to me, feels like... I think there's better ways of spending CP on the Priest. Or I think there's just better ways of spending CP. Like, when enemies go hard on that Priest, he dies. So, Armor Indomitus, to me, might be... You know, like, if the Priest can survive through a turn, great. But my experience with that Priest is when people go on him, he always dies. Alright. Assault Intercessors and Cursors and Infiltrators, and I like the feeling around Infiltrators to keep the backfield safe. You got Death Company with 4 hammers, cool. We got Death Company with 2, 4, 6, 7 power swords. The Death Company are really effective with power swords. 182 points for this squad for 7 power swords, and you got third Death Company with 4 hammers. So yeah, you're going to be doing Fury of the Lost because you got the 4 Death Company units. You got the Leviathan with the twin Volkites, the Gravflux times 2. Okay, interesting. I haven't seen one with the Gravflux times 2. You got the Eliminators. You got 2 Sanguinary Guard with an Infernal Pistol in both. Okay. My thought with the Leviathan personally is that, like, yeah, he can shoot a bit of Marines. He's never going to kill that many Marines, even if you. Because what's the Gravflux? It's going to average 4 shots, you're hitting on 3s, so it's like 3 hits, you're wounding on 2s, maybe they're making like 1 or 2 saves. So Gravflux is killing like 1 or 2 Marines on a good day. The Volkites are maybe killing 1. I think, to me, it feels like this. And yeah, I actually don't like this as well, actually, because your Gravfluxes, they're blast weapons. So if someone manages to charge your Leviathan's hitting them with what? Like, no AP attacks, I guess. And he can shoot his 2 Volkites into combat. I think if you want to run a Leviathan as a Blood Angels player, you need the drill. Like, the drill's like average 4 damage, potentially 6 damage a shot. I guess you could argue that you're going to keep your Infiltrators next to your Leviathan, but like if I saw that you had a Leviathan Dreadnought with 2 Gravfluxes on it, I would try and charge it with whatever the fuck I could get into it. I'd even try and charge it with my Servitors, just to be like, because it'll kill like 2 Servitors, and I'll be like, okay, you killed 2 Servitors, oh, you're stuck in combat now. Whereas like with the drill, you kind of make it unchargeable because no one's going to charge a Leviathan, because if they don't kill it, the drill's just going to instantly kill them, I would think. The Leviathan struggles though due to lack of core and its weapon skill of 3 up. It is the most survivable model we can really field, in that it's like 14 wounds with -1 damage, and it's got 5 up invulnerable save, and most of our armor doesn't have an invulnerable save, and it's got a 2 up regular save as well. So it's arguably the most survivable thing that we have. So at that point, just put a drill on it and run it down the middle of the table and force the enemy to deal with it, right? I don't think the enemy are going to feel like they're forced to deal with it if it's got a couple of Gravfluxes on it. If it's got a friggin' siege drill on it, they're forced to deal with it, right? Because if they don't, the siege drill will kill pretty much whatever it charges. I mean, like, if it takes you 2 turns to get across the battlefield, then you're an assault doctrine. You've got 6 attacks. You're hitting on 3s. So you've got 4 hits, and your hits are about strength 16 with about -5 from the drill. Maybe it's -4. I feel like it might be -5 though, because siege drill. Yeah, it would be -5 with an average of 4 damage and 6 to vehicles, and it's strength 14 with +1 to wound. So with a little bit of luck and you don't fail any of your wound rolls, if they don't have an invulnerable save, they're fucked. And even if they fail 2 of the 4 saves, that's 8 to 12 damage. Like, the drill needs dealt with. 3 squads of Death Company is fine like this. You said you were going to reserve one of them. The only thing I think about reserving a bigger squad, you're going to make it much harder for yourself to deep strike a bigger squad, right? And I mean, that's kind of the strength of like deep striking a 5-man squad. Smaller footprint, more easy to fit into places on the table. But I mean, I guess it's probably kind of minor. It's 220 points. 3 speeders with heavy bolters and assault cannons is only 5 more points at 225 points. They're a better choice against wider range of enemies. Yeah, Leviathan does have its problems, doesn't it? I'm not running that many land speeders at the moment, but I have been running the attack bikes with multi meltas, and I mean I like attack bites with multi-meltas because they're so fast and they can get chapter master rerolls. I feel like they're a good target for chapter master rerolls early in the game as well. Centurions might be better than Leviathan Dreadnought as well. Yeah, what can you get? Like 4 Centurions for about 220 points. I think they're 165 for 3, so 55 each. So yeah, pretty much 220 points exactly as 4 Centurions. That might be a better choice as well here. It would be a lot more melee attacks, and you could get like a boatload of flamer attacks. You can make the Centurions very difficult to charge as well because of the number of flamer shots they can get, right? The only unit without core that breaks into competitive discussion is Centurions. Potentially. Yeah, I mean, I ran a Leviathan Dreadnought recently. Sometimes they can be good, but I think that the shooting from a Leviathan is always lackluster. It really comes down to the drill, because the drill can do big damage. And they can't ignore a Leviathan with a drill charging at them. Like, it's like the Centurions. You can't ignore the Centurions charging at you. Like, they will just wreck whatever they charge, and the drill has the same potential. Your captains and characters are fine. Your troop choices make sense. The 3 squads of Death Company and the captain for Fury of the Lost makes sense. I haven't tried that myself. I'm going to try I'm going to try Fury of the Lost at some point. 2 Sanguinary Guard. If you're going to ever deep strike one of these, then I'd put both Infernal Pistols on a squad that you aren't deep striking, because I feel like you're going to get more chance of shooting the Infernal Pistols. I also think that like 1 Infernal Pistol is just like a 50-50 dice roll, right? Like, because you got to hit and you got to wound. So if you just have 1, you can never really rely on it. You've got Quake Bolts here, and you know what? It's funny to say this after everyone's just been pounding on the Leviathan Dreadnought for being bad, but Quake Bolts is actually really good with a Leviathan Dreadnought. I fought against Gilliman a few weeks back, and my Leviathan, no, it's probably a few months back now actually, but I hit Gilliman with a Quake Bolt, and then my Leviathan Dreadnought just tore him to shreds. So Quake Bolts is one that, Quake Bolts can make your non-core stuff hit on 2s. So that, I mean, I guess with 2 squads of big Thunderhammer Death Company, that could be useful as well. I do think with Chapter Master rerolls, though, the Death Company don't need Quake Bolts. But I mean, it helps. It does help. I think if you have Chapter Master rerolls, you hit 75% of the time with Thunderhammers. If you have Quake Bolts on the target, you hit like 88% chances. So it increases your damage by about like 15%. If you had Centurions, you would give up like 130 points for no prisoners. Yeah, that's always a concern as well for Blood Angels lists, and that's why like people might like, some land speeders or some other choices like that are not infantry based. So it's not quite as easy to just be like, right, I'll just take no prisoners and I'll score a lot of points against you. Both the Blood Angels lists on the top 50 had Patrol and Vanguard. Interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. But I guess if you're using Rites of War combo, then maybe you feel like you don't need troop choices. So you're just not gonna take any troop choices, and you're just gonna go heavy on like killing elites. I guess Blood Angels can do that because Dante gives you 1 CP, right? So if you like Dante and you think he's good and you think that the 1 CP is going to potentially let you take the Patrol and Vanguard, then I guess you could do that. A few people have said to me that Fury of the Lost is actually quite difficult to score. I've not done it myself yet. Yeah, so if you are going to run the Leviathan, I really think you need the drill. I mean, test this one out, but I think you'll feel like its shooting is lackluster because I tested this one out. I think that if you just want a shooting dreadnought, I would honestly just run a Relic Contemptor with the twin Volkites, because I think 16 shots with a potential reroll 1s because he's core is going to be better than what the Grav Fluxes can offer. And it's going to be more swingy, but I mean, it's got a lot more range. The Relic Contemptor is 45 inches of range. You can keep him like you can just outrange your opponent for the entire game with that Relic Contemptor. So and even if they do get fire on him, the Relic Contemptor doesn't degrade. He's still shooting at full strength on 1 wound. if the Leviathan's on 1 wound, he's moving like 3 inches and he's shooting on a 5 up, so he's doing nothing at that point. So that would be my opinion on the Leviathan. And I ran one recently just to test it, but I think that if I was going to run them, I'd run the Relic Contemptors. But again, I guess that comes back to, like, you probably want Dante because these guys are expensive to include in your list because of the CP cost, right? Everything else seems like kind of sane. The only other thing that I might question is Armor Indomitus might not be needed on this priest. I think you just need to play the priest a lot and get him into good positions. And then for your Death Company captain, assuming that, like, he's there to move quickly and push threats, you might actually be better with Imperium Sword here, because Imperium Sword's going to give him +1 attack. It's going to let him reroll his charge. It's going to make your Thunderhammer strength 9, which means with your +1 to wound, you'll still wound toughness 8 on 2s. So, obviously, like with the Death Company captain, you almost want to play like your Death Vision, like straight away, because he doesn't survive typically. So you want to make a charge, possibly a long range charge. That's why Imperium Sword is going to let you reroll him. And then, like I said, you're going to be able to wound toughness 8 on 2s, which is also going to maybe be a big difference. Gift of Foresight is a nice warlord trait, but, like, I just think on, assuming you're going to play your Death Vision, lets you reroll all your failed misses with your Thunderhammer, because why would you not play it? Because if he doesn't survive throughout turn 1, then you're never going to get to use it. Then Gift of Foresight, the reroll is potentially less valuable, I feel like. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing on this. Everything else is fair enough. I need more people to tell me how how many points. Maybe I need to try and find that on like 40k stats or something. Like 4 units of Death Company in top level tournament play. How many points are people actually getting from Fury of the Lost for that? When you build a list for Fury of the Lost, I would agree Lamartez actually starts to look like a smart pick. Because he lets your Death Company reroll charges and gives them better morale. I must admit I've neglected Lamartez this edition. Used to use him all the time. Okay. Alright, I mean, this doesn't sound like a bad list, Douglas. You got any questions, Doug? Starting on 2 CP, which is fine. I think it's good. My problem is, like, I see, like, a Chapter Master and the Priest as, like, 2 super core things. If you don't have the Priest, you don't have that. It's just early Doctrine. If you don't have a Chapter Master, you don't have the rerolls, which I think can give you, like, loads of value and get your Forlorn Fury Death Company loads of value. Which at that point means you only really have one other choice for secondaries. Yeah, 8 to 12 points. So it sounds fine for 8 to 12 points. I think, I guess if you ever come up into really tough opponents that know that you're, yeah, it could be a bit swingy, Fury of the Lost. But I mean, you do have 3 squads that are all well decked out here. So I mean, I do like that. I do think that you'll get on well with that. Just I think there's a potential with the Leviathan for the enemy to ignore it. Whereas if it has, like they'll just ignore it and be like, well, I'll take a few wounds from it every turn, but that's fine. Whereas if you had the drill and you're walking right down the middle of the map, oh shit, this is copied and pasted. This is a list I already looked at. I gotta get Jeffrey's list up. Hold on, something's fucked up. It's supposed to be Jeffrey Smith. Shit. 1 second. Alright, hold on, yeah. For some reason it copied CJ Williams' list twice. Okay. Here's Jeffrey's list. Cool. Panic over. Okay. No, I've got it here, Jeffrey. This is right now, right? Please just double check what you're seeing on the screen. Yeah, I want to try Fury of the Lost, but I think that like I don't like secondaries that force me to do things that I'm not comfortable doing. For example, like one of them might be like I feel like I need to throw a unit of Death Company away to make a kill or something like that. Average 9.57 points on Fury of the Lost. Jason, thank you so much for sharing that. That's actually quite high. How does that compare with like Relentless Assault and Blade of Sanguinius these days? Have you got that data as well? Could a squad of Eradicators and a Sanguinary Priest viably replace the Leviathan, or do I end up with not enough shooting? I mean, you could get 5 Eradicators for... What's 3 Eradicators? 135 points, so they're 45 a model? Yeah, I would prefer 5 Eradicators, I think, to... 5 Eradicators to a Leviathan Dreadnought. Because again, they're core, they can get reroll 1s. Eradicators can be in cover to be on a 2-up save. They're in Gravis, so there's always that Gravis strat that you can play on them as well. They can be revived by the priest. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I never thought of that. Eradicator's 225 points versus the Leviathan, but yeah, I think I would prefer the Eradicators, honestly. I mean, multi-maltas are a good unit. Alright, Jeffrey. I lean heavily on melee for Fury, Relentless, and Blade. As it is obvious, I include Dante with the larger aura to help get other characters up front and buff my Death Company. I found 2 units begin the KG play early as I explain almost everything up front to my opponents, so it starts to affect their deployment. It's heavy on character points, but Angel Sacrifice is so worth it. As I've not just Dante as a utility for it. This went 2-1 at recent RTT, with the one loss being 91 to 90 point loss to 14 Mordog Chaos Knights. Oh, lovely! I've played that Chaos Knight list. The friggin' OBSEC and Dread tests is just horrible, isn't it? You didn't use Wings of Fire earlier, which would have been advantageous. Total score was 253 points. That's very high as well. I only got through 3 turns of my first game against Big Demon List. I hate it. I'm going to buy a chess clock, dude. I hate turning up for tournaments where it's like you're playing against these big, stupid lists that have millions of dice and it takes forever. And I love that you turned it all the way up to 11, because these ones go to 11, right? And the most accomplished players I've seen commented on Blood Angel secondaries expressed that Relentless Assault is their best up to now. I do think Relentless Assault is best. I don't like Blade, personally. And again, it comes down to, like, I don't like Blade because it feels like my opponent can negatively play around stopping me getting it. And then I guess I also feel like I'm forced to throw units forward sometimes. And I like to play very defensively. I don't like to jump units out of position. I don't like to trade units if I don't have to trade. Um, okay. All right, let's see how this is. So this should be a very strong list. The 14 dog War Dog Chaos Knights, the way you beat that, I guess, is Rights of War, right? So if you don't have Rights of War, then maybe that's what we're going to suggest here. You got Dante with Heroic Bearings, the Warlord. You got Death Company Captain on the bike with the Hammer of Baal and an Infernal Pistol and Imperium Sword. That's what I said earlier. I think Imperium Sword's probably going to help. Not sure I love spending 2 CP on this guy, though. Do you really feel like... I mean, I guess the hammer gives you an extra point of AP as well as hitting on 2s, but I mean you can reroll your failed misses with his death vision, so it's really just the AP. Okay, you got the Sanguinary Priest with the Chainsword, and do we have Rights of War Ancient? Yeah, you've got that down below. Okay, so double Incursive Assault Intercessor, super standard for Blood Angels. 2 4-man Death Companies with hammers, kind of standard. Large squad, I think this is like 10 guys with 2 Infernal Pistols. Is this right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 10 Death Company, 2 Infernal Pistols. I guess you're going Fury Lost as well with the 4 squads. You got the Ancient with Infernal Pistol, Rights of War, Wrath of Baal, so we get the extra move. We get the double Sanguinary Guard, and we get the Whirlwind. Okay, and the Sanguinary Guard are 2 Infernal Pistols in each. 4 or 5 swords and a couple of axes. You've got 7 and this is an 8, isn't it? An 8. Okay, and then the Whirlwind. And I guess I missed your pictures of the BCP results, but I believe you. Good evening. Good evening. Henry, how you doing? Adamort, good evening. Jeffrey, 10 points for Relentless Assault. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, our most reliable secondary then is Relentless Assault. And Fury the First, I guess, is a reasonably high pick at 9.57. Oath of Moment was by far one of the best secondaries for Space Marines until Nephilim came out. What's Oath scoring these days? Can you pull that as well? So he beat Demons 100 to 37. That's crazy. Sorry, 80. But maybe you got 100 because of they run out of time. 80 to 57 against Chaos Knights, and then a loss. Oh, you were playing 2 Chaos Knights lists. Okay, lovely. Starting on 2 CP. So the CP spend is 2 in the Death Company Captain and 2 in the Ancient. Well, hold on a minute. What? Why are you not starting on 3 CP if Dante's the Warlord? Because he gives you +1, right? What am I missing? Was there a CP spent somewhere else? Huh. It didn't look like there was a CP spent somewhere else. Oh, Dante spent it on the aura? Alright, right. I mean, if you're running into lots of Chaos Knights, I'd probably actually remove Dante's aura and give the priest Visage of Death to remove the Knight's Obsec, right? Oath is now just 8. I mean, Oath doesn't get picked very often, but still 8 points most games, which is decent, right? Like, I guess if you run out of choices, Oath is a fallback. You know, like, hey, there's no good choices here. I suppose you could pick Oath. And the one thing that I do like about Oath is it doesn't force you to overextend. I mean, it's interesting that Oath is going to score 8.19 on average, when like people think that like Blade of Sanguinius is really good and it's only going to score 7.5. I can't imagine many people pick Shock Tactics, but that would be good to know as well. Yeah. You couldn't send me all that data in Discord, Jason, could you? Or could you send me like the website you're looking at it on or something? Blade can fail. Yeah, and that's the thing about Oath is like even if let's assume that you pick Oath and you never kill like a monster character vehicle and you never hold the middle, you still probably don't pass. You still probably don't fail leadership more than once. You still get 4 points, right? I would appreciate it, Jason, if you can send it to me on Discord or just on Facebook Messenger or something. That would be super. That would be super handy. Okay, so 3 Death Company. The Death Company Captain for your Fury, the Whirlwind for your Fight Last, the couple of Sanguinary Guard, the Ancient. I mean, I ran something that looked an awful lot like this at an RTT myself. I think I ran one less squad of Death Company, but I was still running Van Vets with Lightning Claws. And I ran Mephiston instead of the Death Company Captain. And I maybe ran... I think I ran a Land Speeder and a squad of Eradicators for maybe like the second squad of Death Company with Thunderhammers. And I think this sort of list is fine. I think it can actually do really well. My issue with a list like this, and I have an issue with it because I've played against Sisters of Battle and I've played against Space Wolves, and I don't know what's my thoughts on Raised Banners. My thoughts on banners is if it's a 6 objective map, it's good. If it's a 5 objective map, I tend to avoid it. And even though you would think on a 5 objective map, then I can just hold 2. What will typically happen is if you put 2 banners up, the opponent's going to pressure one of them, which means eventually you'll just have 1 banner up. Whereas I think on the 6 objective map, you can put 3 up, the opponent pressures one of them, you have 2 banners up. So I think banners for me really depends on the number of objectives on the map. And that also doubles down at the end of the game, because if there's 6 objectives on the map and you're winning the game well, you could potentially put up like 3 or 4 banners on extra objectives at the end of the game and catch up if you're behind. Yeah, so my issue with a list like this is like there's a lot to like, right? Like, you've got a lot of squads. They'll basically trade really well into melee. You've got potential fight last. The problem is that if the enemy have any units that can fight on death, like Wolven, like Repentia, or if the enemy have some like really fast units that are going to hit you really, really hard, like Zephyrum with rerolls from Morgan Val, moving 12 inches, and then rerolling all hits and wounds. A 5-man squad of Zephyrum, I actually would be interested to know the math on that, right? But like... and I can't spell Zephyrum. I'm going to have to go in, because there's 2. There's Seraphim, and then there's Zephyrum, right? I think it's the Seraphim are the ones with power swords, yes. So they get 4 attacks on the superior and 3 on each of the other ones. And then they're bloody rolls, so they get +1 attack and +1 AP. So a 5-man squad of these guys. And they reroll charges anyway, but they can use the Miracle Dice to charge, so it doesn't really matter. So you get 5 attacks, and so you get 25 hits, or you get 25 attacks, right? And 6s burst as well, and you reroll everything. So you're hitting on 3s. So you're hitting 97% of the time, because you're rerolling everything. So you get that many hits, and then you need to times that by 1.166666 because they're bursting, so they get 28 hits. Bear in mind, this squad costs nothing, basically, right? Like 5-man squad of these guys is like 75 points. Then they're wounding on 4s because they're toughness 4, but you're rerolling everything, so it's times 75.75. So you got to take 21 saves at -4. So it's -3 because Armor of Contempt. So let's assume this was into Sanguinary Guard. Yeah, Sanguinary Guard are -1 to hit. So I mean, we could factor that in, I suppose, if we go back one step. So rather than hitting on 3s, we'd be hit on 4s. So 21 saves at -3 is 1.5. 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 So but we're re-rolling everything. So it was their 25 times 0.75. No, 25 times 0.75 because we're hitting on 4s, re-rolling everything, and then bursting on 6s, and then wounding on 4s, re-rolling everything. So like into Sanguinary Guard, we gotta save these on 5s. So this is how much damage we take. So a 75-point squad of these guys does 10 damage to Sanguinary Guard. So if this is like a... And remember, these guys almost can never fail their charges because they can use Miracle Dice and they can reroll their charges. So if this is like a 6-man... So each guy is basically doing 2.2 wounds. So if this is a 6-man squad, you've lost 13 wounds on your Sanguinary Guard. If this is a 7-man squad, you've lost 15 wounds on your Sanguinary Guard. I mean, so 7-man squad of Zerfarim, which is like under 100 points, are trading up against a 220-point Sanguinary Guard. They're wiping the squad in a single turn. And that's before, I don't know, they've got pistols as well, I suppose, right? Like 7-bolt pistols. I mean, I guess that's not going to do much, but they do have them. Yeah, so like, I like your list, Jeffrey, and I've played it to the exact same position that you were in, where you won 2-1 at a GT, an RTT, and in my event, I came third, and I don't think you told me where you finished, but after finishing third and getting beat by an enemy that can basically fight last, beat by an enemy that can like fight on death and stuff like that. If you come into a fight on death enemy with this, you can only trade with like really expensive units. And also, if you're playing something like Sisters, they're going to trade up against you like crazy. I had a game where I ran this sort of list into a Sisters player, and I killed 2 squads of Repentia and 2 squads of Zeraphim in turn 1. And like, he only has 3 of both, right? And I sort of said to myself after turn 1, like, turn 1 literally couldn't have gone better. Like, killing 2 of his squads of Zeraphim and 2 of the squads of Repentia in turn 1, I was like, this is the best chance I ever have of beating Sisters, because the Sisters list is bullshit in terms of how much damage it can do to me, and I've still lost the game. So that's why I feel, personally, that, like, I guess you give away a lot of points with no prisoners with this list as well, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70... What was that, like 100? So you give away 12 points and no prisoners as well? I guess you give away 12 points for Assassinate, 13 points for Assassinate. So yeah, that's why, excuse me, that's why I'm like, yeah, some land speeders, some eradicators. I mean, you could even... I suppose the problem you've got is that you're going heavy into Fury of the Lost. If you were able to, if you were going to swap out Fury of the Lost for something else, like I said, like a Relic Contemptor Dreadnought with double Volcon wouldn't be bad here. Putting that in just for like one of the squads of Death Company would take away what, like, it would drop you like 3 points on no prisoners now that it's just down to like 9 or something. And it gives you, like, assume the enemy's going to have a unit that can make you either, like, fight last or they're going to fight on death or something like that. You're going to want something that can kill that unit at ranged. If you can't kill that unit at range, you're going to have a big problem. And I guess here's the thing about RTTs. Sometimes when you do an RTT... I've got a slide here that I made for the RTT that I came third in, right? I don't know if you've seen that slide, but I mean, we can look at that list real quick. So I ran Captain the Bike, Mephiston. I ran the same troop choices as you. I ran Death Company, Sanguinary Ancient, 2 Sanguinary Guard. I ran a squad of Terminators and Vanguard Vets. So slightly different makeup, but the same thing where, like, like, this is a melee-orientated list. The Terminators were coming in on Deep Strike. The Vanguard Veterans were just I think this was before Armor of Contempt came out, honestly. And then I just had a Land Speeder and Eradicators. So I think I had one less squad of melee guys, but I had, I had 4 multi-metas in the list, essentially, just so that I had a little bit of shooting. Here is the list. I guess I just swapped out Mephiston. But, oh, do you know what? I was going to say I don't have a picture of the game. God damn it. I thought I had a picture of the table. Maybe I don't have a picture of the table. Maybe you can find the video. It was called Masterclass. If you watch it, the final table was like super empty in the middle of the map. So, as well as... I was going to say, I don't know where I would have kept the screenshots, actually. I'm not... My folders are not super organized since I moved house. Well, I got a new computer and I don't know where I would have kept the pictures of the... Would they be in the video? Maybe. 1 second. Let's have a quick look in the video. Bear with me. Hey Miles, how you doing? I was going to say, this is the video I made. Welcome back to part 2. Some serious Inception. Yeah, this was the top table, right? So, like, that whole area in the middle, all it has is this one little box that was... I guess the box was it was an obstacle. So it was only obscuring if you couldn't see over it. So, like, this wolf player had a squad of multi-melted Devastators here and 2 Redemptors. And they had, like, this giant fucking firing arc across, like, the whole table. So, like, I had to jump around all the sides and bullshit and try and obscure stuff. Which was a nightmare anyway, because, like, you know, there was, in my opinion, we needed, you know, a table like this is going to make it very hard for a jump unit, because there's no way I can fit, like, a squad of jump marines behind this anyway. And if I do, remember, the wolves have, like, a psychic power that can make you fight last on 18 inches. So anytime I tried to engage on him, he was going to make me fight last. So yeah, on principle, like, I think it's a great, strong list. In reality, I don't know how you win an event with it, because if you come into one of those opponents, and Space Wolves were who I played at the final, there was literally no way for me to beat Space Wolves, because he had giant firing arcs, he had multiple units that fight on death, and he had multiple ways of making me fight last. And yeah, it was kind of horrible. I actually only lost like 81 to 55 or something like it. I felt like I 81 to 59, something like that. I didn't play badly, but like it kind of, for a long time I've been saying, like, I'm not sure I love all melee lists, and this just played right into that hands. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, remove one squad of I feel like you want to remove one squad anyway, so you're not giving up 12 points for no prisoners, and try and put something in there. Maybe one of those new storm speeders. Grey Knight. I lost at the top table against Grey Knights as well. The two events I could have won, I lost against Space Wolves and I lost against Grey Knights. Yeah, tough. And the Grey Knight player just mortal wounded the crap out of me. And that was before I took Soul Warden, so, like, since those games, I guess, now I always take Soul Warden, and now I always try and have a little bit of shooting in my army. And, like, my current list, the one that I ran just this week, just has that new Storm Speeder in it, which is, like, 145 points and 3 attack bikes. So it's, like, 300 points. But it gives me, like, 9 multi-melta shots and a couple of, like, 36-inch 3 damage missiles. Just enough to keep the enemy honest, is the way I would kind of put it, you know? And also, if I come up in another map like that, where, like, there's a giant kill zone, I'm actually going to be able to, like, if I had 3 attack bikes like that were obscured, I would drive all 3 of the attack bikes within half range of one of those Redemptors and just pop it. Because I feel like, that's actually an interesting question, right? If you had 3 attack bikes and you gave them Chapter Master rerolls, and you shot all the multi-meltas into a Redemptor Dreadnought, you would have 6 shots, you'd hit 88% of the time, you would wound 66% of the time. They're at -4. So the Redemptor can potentially save on a 6. So, and then you're D6 plus 2. So you're 5.5 -1. So yeah, actually 3 attack bikes with full Chapter Master rerolls on them, on average, do 13.06 wounds to Redemptor, and Redemptor has 13 wounds, right? So like on average, assuming that all the dice is roll exactly average, you kill the Redemptor in a single turn. If you're in Assault Doctrine, if you're in Heavy Doctrine, you definitely kill it. And remember, you do have like 12 bolter shots on there with Chapter Master rerolls as well, so even if your multi-metas swing down a tiny bit, maybe your bolters can finish it off, or maybe you got some other firepower in your list that you can finish it off. But regardless, even if you don't finish it off, let's say you leave the Redemptor on 2 wounds or something, well, now he's only hitting on 5s. So, I mean, arguably that alone is probably like a big deal, right? Like, you might even be willing to sacrifice 1 or 2 attack bikes to make the Redemptors hit on 5s, right? So yeah, I like the idea of the all melee list. In practice, though, I think that there's armies that you just can't beat. And I don't want to go to an event where I just can't win, because there's armies that I just can't beat. So I'm going to try and run something that can do more things. Yes, it might make me a bit weaker into some things, but you have to decide, right? All right, Michael. I don't know why it says Wolves. Maybe he plays Space Wolves as well, because this is definitely a Blood Angels list, unless Mephiston suddenly decided to become a traitor. Alright, hi Blood Angels. He is a Space Wolf player who has used Centurions in almost every list and loves them, but starting to get a little bored of using them, so moving to play Blood Angels. I mean, Space Wolves are boring, so I mean, that'll be why you want to come and play Blood Angels anyway, but I mean, just saying. This is an ideal for a tournament in late October. Slightly modified of this list is 1 squad of Eliminators instead of 2, no Assault Squad, and added Primaris Tetmarine, 4 Servitors, and 5 Voidsmen. And I think the Servitors and Voidsmen have value in them. I think we've got you up for a list review next week. Is it next week or is it the week after that, Brew and Biscuits? Yeah, I think it's the week after that. We've quite a few submissions as of late. Okay. I've shamelessly much copied the Bike Captain from you now, except for the Relic. I always use a Bike Captain with my Wolves and loves it. I think this Blood Angels Captain is more of a support character compared to the Wolves one. Yeah, I mean, my character used to be more of a killing character. Now I think think of him as more of a support character. So 1975 points and it's 1 CP. He's got the squad of Servitors in there, and they're free because he's got the Tetmarine, who is the Master of the Forge. He's got the Bike Captain with Soul Warden and Angel's Artifice. And Rites of War. Yeah, so Soul Warden and Rites of War. I think if you have both those things, you're in like great shape. Angel's Artifice, giving him toughness 6 and an additional wound and a 2-up save is fine. You could do this with Armor Indomitus as well. I tend to feel Armor Indomitus gives you more value than Angel's Artifice, because if you're getting hit with like Strength 6 and 7, or Strength 7 and 8 weaponry, then you get no additional survivability from Angel's Artifice, whereas you would get the survivability from the 3-up from Armor Indomitus, but that's fine. Quickening Unleash Wings is the proper or correct choice on Mephiston. Double Infiltrators and Assault Intercessors is a good choice for troops. Death Company with a bunch of Thunderhammers, Infernal Pistols, and Power Swords. He's also starting on how many CP? 1 CP. Maybe that's a little bit low. Double Relic Contemptors with Twin Volkites and Cyclones. And these things are actually pretty decent. I like Relic Contemptors with the Cyclones as firing platforms. They don't have the same problem as the Leviathan, that if like somebody does charge these, then they are going to be able to shoot all these into combat, because if you shoot crack missiles, they're not blast, they're just heavy 2, I think. And then you get the 16 shots from the Culverins. They are core. I don't dislike these. They also have really good range, like really, really good range. When did Lamartez go to 120 points? I thought he was 110, but if he went to 120 points, it was probably a while ago. I think he was 110 at the beginning of the edition. Astroth was 100. I think they were both 110 at the beginning of 9th. You've got 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, and it's all 6s, 2 Infernal Pistols, and 2 of them, and Eliminators with Las Fusils. Okay, I mean, I just said in the last list you need 300 points of shooting. The Tech Marine here, I mean, it is good because you can give one Relic Contemptor Chapter Master rerolls, and you can give the other one 2 up to hit and be next to the Chapter Master. So one's hitting on 2s, rerolling everything. The other one's hitting on 3s, rerolling everything. You can pay 1 CP to use the Lieutenant buff to let them reroll all failed wounds of 1. So I've used these before. I've used these in a tournament. I mean, they do generally... They swing, though, right? And that's the problem with Relic Contemptors, is like... And I've seen insane swings. I've seen it where, like, a single Volcon has done no mortal wounds. I've seen it where 2 Volcons have done no mortal wounds. I've also seen it where, like, a single Volcon can do 5 mortal wounds. So the problem, I think, with Relic Contemptors is that they swing horrifically, and also the Volcons have no AP. They also aren't good into armor because they're just strength 6. But then they have great range. They don't get profiled. So arguably you may not even need the Tech Marine if you're not being profiled, right? Just run a priest and get your Death Company and other units into Assault Doctrine. Mike has done 8 mortal wounds with a Volcon. I mean, like I said, it swings. My problem is that I had this at the top table of a... So I had this at a tournament, and all through the day it was going great. And then I went to the top table when I was playing Grey Knights, and I really needed some mortal wounds. And I don't think I rolled a single one. And I guess hard to put into words. Like, you need mortals. You're fishing for 6s, and you're not getting any 6s. And as such, it's not doing any damage because it's lack of AP. And I think Nemesis Dread Knight save on 2s. I think Grey Knight Terminators save on 2s as well. So, you're then hoping for 1s. And you're not wounding very successfully either, so... Relic Contemptors they had their place. They went up 20 points per model. I still don't think they're a bad choice. I probably prefer them to Leviathans, and in some ways, if you just want a shooting platform, then I probably actually do prefer them to Redemptors. And the reason that I prefer them to Redemptors is Redemptors are very inefficient against, like, Harlequins. Like, not Harlequins, sorry. Drukhari transports. Redemptors are crazy inefficient because the Raiders have a rule where they're a 4-up save, a 5-up invulnerable save. So the second you hit them with 1 point of AP, that's the maximum you can do to them in ranged. So Relic Contemptors give them weight of fire at 45 inches. They're arguably going to potentially be able to outrange some of those Drukhari transports and open them up and do mortal wounds against them. DTM says you don't probably need Master Forge here because there's no need to keep them in the high bracket. I think you would prefer a Tech Marine here. Sorry, not a Tech Marine. I think you prefer the Priest. Because the Tech Marine's going to be... If you're going to keep the... When I played Relic Contemptors before, I'd honestly measure 45 inches away and keep them 30... Well, I guess if they've got Cyclones, I'd keep them 36 inches away from the enemy. So they're not going to get shot back that much because they're 36 inches away. So at that point, I feel sad that I painted up those Relic Contemptors and I never run them. I guess it's the CP cost that puts me off. It was different when you started on 12 CP. Feels a bit tighter now, right? And obviously you've spent 3 CP on the captain, which is quite a lot, I guess. I was going to say, is Highland Phoenix here? I can show him pictures of my gladiator. Gonna say, look, Highland Phoenix, it's a magnetized gladiator with Reaper autocannons. We finally have a gladiator. I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I'm gonna have one. I mean, when you're running double relic contemptor and eliminators and infiltrators, and then 3 squads of the Sandguard, the Soul Ward, and the Mephiston. Again, I think the Priest will be better than the Forge Master, but I mean, time will see, I guess. I actually don't really have a lot of criticism on this sort of list. I'd probably run it myself. I ran it to a few tournaments, and it the GT that I almost won, or that I did really well at. I ran double relic contemptor. Fair enough, they were more expensive. They were cheaper. They were 20 points cheaper then, but every model of Sanguinary Guard was like 2 points more expensive. So arguably, it just balances out. You could run this with the Whirlwind as well. I suppose you could lose like one Sanguinary Guard out of one of these squads or something, or you could replace your infiltrators with incursors and take the Whirlwind. I think that would be totally fine as well. I guess the only advantage, to having the Tech Marine gives you that free score of servitors, which I guess can be good for Nachman data, but like you're also, if you are going to reserve some stuff here, you're starting on 0 CP, which is rough. Sorry for the off topic. Have you tried Horus Heresy Blood Angels or any plans to do so? I'd love to do it one day, Lazy Pictures, but like at the moment, making videos for this channel, working and looking after the kids, I barely even get enough time to actually paint the models that I need for 40k. I have like you can see games behind me. I have like 10 board games that all need painted that aren't Warhammer related that I've literally had for like 2 or 3 years that I haven't started. So unfortunately 30k is gonna have to wait. I was really close to finishing a Star Wars Legion army. And it's been like 3 years. Like I've been doing this channel almost 3 years. In that time, I haven't painted Star Wars Legion once. So yeah, 30k is gonna have to wait, I guess. I'm gonna have to win some GTs first at 40k before I think about doing something else. Yeah, I mean, minor things to this list. You could always lose one of the Cyclone missile launchers if you wanted the Whirlwind as well. Yeah, the cost of the relic stuff annoys me. Yeah, that's what makes me. Maybe the next chapter approved will have different costs in terms of CP, but yeah, the 1 CP for the relic contemptors puts me off as well because. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I feel like at the moment, well, you guys know that I don't like Dante, right? Personal opinion, I don't like Dante. So I'm going to need to take Soul Warden. I'm going to need to take Rites of War. So I start on 6 CP if I take my battalion. That's me down 2 already. I'm going to want to start with 2. So that I've got 1 for Forlorn Fury, and then when it's my opponent's turn, I have 2 for counter-offensive. So at that point, last week I played Selfless Healer. Potentially I could play like a Psychic Mastery Psyker. If I'm going to do any of those other things, then I just have 1 CP left. So yeah, I suppose I could take a Relic Contemptor. sit him 45 inches away and blast away with 2 twin Volkites the entire game. I mean, is my dislike for Dante purely the weapon and the price? The weapon is a problem because it's only 2 damage, yes. But the fact that he's got nothing to protect against mortals, and I don't like his warlord trait. I think Rites of War is much better, and I'd rather run that on my captain. And yeah, I mean, like, I just don't particularly think a toughness 4 character is survivable. But bear in mind, I guess I play much differently from a lot of people, right? Like, and then I always end up playing against bullshit skew lists because I play Andrew all the time, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like, Andrew literally takes ridiculously like if there's an overpowered combo, then Andrew will run it. So yeah, I mean, like, I have to play things that I think are strong if you play Andrew all the time. Maybe if Dante, like, I quite like Mephiston now for survivability. You know, like toughness 5, 6 wounds, 5 up shrug, 2 up armor of contempt. So I quite like Mephiston sort of feels like a character that's probably why I like Mephiston, because he feels like this is a character that can get behind. Like, he can jump in and take a punch in the face and just be like, right, I've Angel Sacrifice, let's move on. And I used Angel Sacrifice actually on Mephiston just in the tournament that I played like a few weeks back. And yeah, the guy had some nasty character and he punched Mephiston in the face, and Mephiston took like 1 wound or 2 wounds from it. Enough, so little damage that like it didn't affect Mephiston for the rest of the game. He was just jumping around, killing things everywhere. Um, Lazy Pictures said 30k Blood Angel was quite refreshing. I loved playing old, like 2nd edition Warhammer, which I imagine which is a lot like 30k now, like rank and file troops, I guess, with loads of bolters and tactical squads. So I quite imagine that I would like 30k. It's just going to be time, I guess. Maybe when my kids are a bit older, you know. Stephen wants the new balance slate to come out quickly. Yeah, hopefully it'll be soon. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like it's making me think, like, because at the moment I was running that storm speeder, like arguably the relic contemptor is going to be more survival than storm speeder. It's got invulnerable save, it's got longer range, it's got the potential of mortal wounds at 45 inches. Am I expecting anything big in the data slate? Not really, but like based on the win percentages that we were looking at the start of the stream, where like Harlequins have a 60% win rate, Drukhari have a 60% win rate, Tyranids still have a 59% win rate. Blood Angels, by the way, we're not even on this fucking list. We have a 49% win rate. I don't know why. It feels like that's just the way it is at the moment. I'm not expecting anything. I said that last time though, and I mean last time Death Company and Sangre Guard both went down in points. I don't know, maybe Gladiators, maybe Storm Speeders, maybe something will go down in points for Marines because we're still not there in terms of playing with the big boys. Yeah. Anyway, so Michael, hope I've given you some feedback on this list. I don't mind it at all, to be honest. The core or the structure of this sort of list is pretty much what I will be running. You know, couple of Death Company, couple of Sangre Guards, couple of File Sport, the troops, Mephiston, the captain on the bike, either the Whirlwind or Eliminators, and then a priest. So I mean, it's a solid list. It's just a case of like, I starting 1 CP to me feels like too little right now. And I guess that's why I'm probably not a huge fan of Relic Contemptors anymore since the Nephilim changes. Okay. we got full cool unit options last time, Assault Marines in particular. Yeah, I mean, I guess we did get some interesting things last time. I don't think they've said when the data slate is coming, but hopefully not too long. I think it should have been last week, or maybe even the week before, but I think the squats needed like that emergency balance patch. So anyway, if you did enjoy tonight's video, please hit the like button. We are here every Sunday night looking at army lists. If you're new, you could obviously consider subscribing. I'm going to try and play a live game on Wednesday. I don't have an opponent yet for Wednesday night, but I will figure one out. Hopefully. The balance data slate is more for rules. Yeah, maybe we'll... Yeah, I suppose we're probably not going to see anything marine-wise in the balance data slate. We're maybe going to see... We'll maybe see some tweaks to some of these top-tier lists. I mean, in my opinion, no army should have anywhere near a 66% win rate. It shouldn't even be bad enough that they're a 60% win rate. You look at the top table... I haven't seen the top 10 of LGT, but I imagine it's going to be tons of Harleys, Tyranids. I thought I might see Chaos Knights up there, unless this Chaos is Chaos Knights. I guess we'll see. I don't think I'll have the Gladiator this week. It's just being commissioned at the moment, so maybe a few weeks from now. But yeah. Okay. Thank you for the submissions. Next week's lists are going to be... let's just throw these in here. Nephilim lists. Next week's lists will be Kyle, Drysu, Eric, KWSX, Life RPG, and Matthew Bishop. And we'll be live about the same time next week. And so if you want to get your list in for the week after, you need to do it the next couple of days because there's only about 3 slots left for 2 weeks from now. I guess I'll see you guys soon. Enjoy your evening. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.